Well, good morning, everyone. Great to have you all here. And today we will be starting a brand new series on an ancient, what are we going to call it? It's like an ancient letter, it's an ancient manual, and it is called the Didache. Has anyone ever heard of the Didache before? Okay, well, you are in for a treat. You're in for a surprise here. Sermon series will run about 4 or 5 weeks, and we will dive into this ancient letter. Now, I discovered this letter probably about 15 years or so ago, right when I was starting Awaken, and I'd never heard about it before, so it doesn't surprise me that you haven't heard about it either. And I have been thinking about this. I've gone back to it sometimes, and what I thought we would do here this morning as we jump into this series is why don't we ask a couple of questions about the Didache, because you've never heard of this before. And so I want to give you a little background as to what it is and the significance for us in our lives. And I titled this one, because you always need a good title. We're going to call it This Is the Way, in honor of the new Mandalorian movie that comes out in a couple of weeks. So if you have followed the Mandalorian and their mantra, their slogan, This is the Way, well, for the first followers of Jesus, it wasn't, you were a Christian, but it meant that you were following the way of Jesus. And so today's sermon is titled, This is the Way. And if you would like a little bit of info about the Didache, here's a book that has helped me tremendously. It's called, quite simply, The Didache, A Window on the Earliest Christians by Thomas O'Loughlin. Highly recommend this one if you want to dig into the Didache a bit more. But first, question for us, what is the Didache? It is a manual on how to be a follower of Jesus. I kind of liken it to, those books, whatever it might be for dummies, like computer programming for dummies. This is like how to be a Christian for dummies. Here's the Christian Basics 101. And Didache, obviously this was written in Greek, so Didache means teaching or training. So instead of the Didache, we could call this is the teaching. Or this is the training. In the first century, if you wanted to be a follower of Jesus, one of the ways that you would express that you were becoming a follower of Jesus is you would be baptized. And for the early church, there was a pretty extensive ritual time period of preparation before you would be baptized. You would have months and months of learning what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. You would join with a group of followers of Jesus, and then you would make this momentous decision to be in front of your entire community, and you would say, I want to be baptized in order to express that I am now shifting my allegiance from however I might have been living, and now I want to follow Jesus with my whole life. The Didache was a manual that prepared people for baptism. So if you came to the community, you said, I want to be baptized, you might begin to memorize and live out the Didache, because this was teaching you what this activity, what this ritual actually meant for you, and then how to prepare yourself. So this was like an early catechism. Now, when was the Didache written? This might surprise you. The Didache was written in the first century. Very, very early on, very close to the time in which Jesus walked the earth. Probably by about mid-century, so about 50, most followers of Jesus, at least in certain areas of the world, they would have memorized certain portions of the Didache. So if you were alive around 50, common era, there's a pretty good chance that you would have known portions of the Didache. You would have had it memorized. You would have known about it. You would have passed this information on to other people. You would have committed it to memory. Now, for a little bit of context, when were the New Testament letters written? Anytime between 45, about 95 or so, give or take a couple of years. In other words, the Didache comes very, very early on in the life of the New Testament. This is one of the earliest documents that we have from the first followers of Jesus, which is what makes it really important. Because what were the first followers of Jesus? What were they thinking? How are they living? How are they putting into practice this path of following Jesus. And what we'll see as we dig into the Didache over the next couple of weeks is there's quite a bit of overlap between what you read in this document and then what you'll read in the New Testament, specifically the book of Matthew. Some scholars actually wonder if Matthew used the Didache to write his gospel, or if there was some other source that the Didache and Matthew looked to in order to write these letters that they were composing. So you'll see there's a lot of overlap, and the Didache comes very, very early on in the life of the church. Now, why is it important for us today? It's great. This is an ancient document, goes back 2,000 years. Why does it matter for us today? Because that's what you all want to know. You're here, like, I don't want to study an ancient letter, an ancient manual, unless it has significance for me in my life. 3 reasons. First, it gives us a window into the first century Christians. And this is really, really important, I think, because it reminds us that we're swimming in a tradition that has been going on for 2,000 years, but obviously the story began much longer before that. And I think as a follower of Jesus, for me, it's been really helpful to read how and to learn and to study how following Jesus has evolved and developed over the years. And we are gaining a glimpse into second-generation Christians. There's a good chance that the people who wrote this, the people that were reading this, that studied this, that put it into practice, there were some people who actually were alive when Jesus walked the earth. So we're getting a glimpse into the earliest ways in which people began to form communities around the way of Jesus, which I think is really, really important and reminds us, hey, we're not the first ones doing this. There's a long history, and we get to learn from their wisdom and then figure out what it means for us in the 21st century, which then leads to the second reason why I think it's important. There are principles within to guide us today in our journey of discipleship. A disciple means to be a follower of someone. The Didache is about, well, what does it mean to be a disciple, a follower of Jesus? And what happens when we read this letter, as we do whenever we read the Old Testament or other portions of the Bible, there are principles, there's eternal wisdom that we can pull out and then apply to our lives. So we might not apply everything directly. Obviously, there's 2,000 years time gap here, and first century looks quite a bit different than the 21st century, but there's wisdom and principles that can guide us on our journey and that are still relevant for our lives today. And then here's the third reason, because the Didache shows us how to put the good news of Jesus into practice. The good news about the love and grace of Christ that is upon you. And it's this idea, but then how do you actually go and live it out? Here's that book I mentioned, the Didache. Without the good news, Christianity would be just another set of rules and rituals. It's the good news of Jesus that drives this particular way of living. But without the training, without the teaching, without the manual, the Didache that we're looking at, well, these would be lovely words in our ears, but it would never inform living. And so we experience the grace of Christ. Our hearts are opened up because we find ourselves filled with the love of Christ, but then it's not just to end there. How do we then go and live it out? How do the experiences that we have, the words that we read, the love that we find in Jesus, how does it transform our lives? And so that's what the Didache is all about being sure that the ideas about Jesus that we come across don't stay here in our heads, but we actually begin to embody them. And we put them into practice. And we fill our world with the love of Jesus through our actions. So that's what the Didache is all about. Now, here's how it begins. There are 2 ways, one of life and one of death, but a great difference between the 2 ways. I mean, that's an opener. That'll catch you. There's 2 ways. You can walk the path of life, or you can walk the path of death. You come to a fork in the road. Well, if you go left, that's the path to, let's call it life. If you go right, the path to death. If I were to poll the audience, which path would you prefer here this morning? I mean, you're going to listen up, right? Because you're like, okay, if there's 2 paths, well, of course I'm going to want the path of life. I mean, who wants to walk down the road to death? We all want that path to life. And what we discover is that this idea of two roads, two paths, this has a long biblical tradition. Here we are in Deuteronomy. Moses is speaking to the Israelites before they enter into the promised land. Moses is giving a sermon. And this sermon that we read in Deuteronomy, this is the James Cameron cut of the sermon, because this thing goes on and on and on. I mean, it's an entire book of a sermon. And Moses says, "This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you. I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses." I'm sure you can determine blessings goes with, curses goes with, yes. Now, choose life so that you and your children may live. Moses is offering this invitation. As you enter into the promised land, as you continue walking on this journey, you'll discover, well, you have an option. You can walk this road that's going to lead to life for you and your family and those who come after you. It's going to open your heart. Or you can walk another way that's going to actually close your heart off and create a death. Whether it's a physical death, a spiritual death, it is going to take you away from all that is good in life. Then we come to Proverbs. "Thus you will walk in the ways of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will live in the land, the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, the unfaithful will be torn from it." Living in the land, as we saw with Moses, meant life. Exile, removal meant death. We see this continual theme all throughout the Old Testament. Well, there's two paths. We have an option as to which road we will walk in life. Then we come to Jesus, Matthew chapter 7. "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. Many enter through it, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life. Only a few find." These are sobering words right here. Well, the road to death, it's wide, it's open, it's easy to walk down the road of death. And chances are we've all experienced that before, because we've all taken steps down that wide and open road. And we realize, whoa, okay, this isn't really the best for me. And so we try to move our way back to that narrow road where we're finding ourselves filled with life. So Jesus offers this warning that we read all throughout the Bible and that the Didache picks up on. There are two roads in life, and there's a great difference between the two, as I'm sure many of you know. There's a great difference between life and death, and it doesn't even need to be a physical life and death, but that emotional, that spiritual death that we sometimes experience in life. Now, for me, this raises a question. It's a question for every single one of us. As we read the Didache, here's the question I think that is being asked. What is your desired destination? I pulled up Google Maps and I created a favorite somewhere here in the middle of America. I realized this was Nebraska. Never been here before, but I made it a favorite on my account, I guess. If you are here at 41 degree, 15, whatever, however you read that thing, if you are there in the middle of the U.S. in some cornfield in Nebraska, and you want to go to some other destination in America, you're going to pull up your Google Maps, you're going to pull out your Rand McNally, you're going to do whatever you need to do in order to figure out where you want to go. If you want to travel to New York, here are the roads that you take. It's going to take about 18 hours, 28 minutes. Or you can take this route and go 20 hours, 33 minutes if you want sightseeing in, I don't know, what's that, Iowa? So if you want to go to New York, well, there's a certain road that you're going to travel. Well, what if you want to go to Texas? You're not going to take the same road over here because your destination is going to be different. You don't want to go to New York, you want to go to Texas. But what if you want to go to California? Well, you're going to take another road if you want to go to California. Whenever you have a place in mind, a destination, when you came here for the first time, you plugged it into a map because your destination was, I want to go to this movie theater. If you have lunch plans after church here, you're going to plug in the restaurant. We all have a desired destination physically, places that we go, and a map guides the journey, tells us where to turn. It tells us how to get to the destination where we want to go. The road in life that you travel matters. You're not going to take the same roads in order to go from Nebraska to New York as you would from Nebraska to Texas. The decisions that you make in life matter. This is true for the physical, as we just saw with maps, for the tangible, the things that are seen. If you want a job, well, there's certain things you're going to do in order to secure that job. You're going to go for it. You're going to apply. You're going to go for an interview. You're going to dress a certain way. You're going to communicate a certain way when you're being interviewed. So whatever the outcome is that we desire, well, there's certain physical steps that we take. But the road you travel in life, it also matters for your emotional, your spiritual, the inner life that we all have. We have an outer life that you can see, but we all have an inner life. And just as it's really, really important, the roads that we travel to get to a physical destination, it's just as important that we travel the right road to get to that inner spiritual destination that we all desire. There's two roads. One leads to life, one leads to death. The road you travel in life matters. It will take you to the destination that you desire. So for us, a few diagnostic questions for this series. What type of life do you truly desire? You think about your life and where it's going. What type of life do you desire for yourself? Because once you have an end goal, well, that can help you make decisions. That can help you determine the roads that you travel, where you make the turns. How about this? What quality of life do you desire for yourself? There's life and there's death. Well, we know that the quality of a life that is living in death, well, it's not the same quality as one who is experiencing life. And there's many ways you can experience death before physical death. So what type of quality of life do you desire? And what do you dream for your life? If you were to put a big picture of the dreams that you have for where you'd like your life to go, what you would like your life to look like, well, that's going to guide the journey, the roads that you go on. So the Didache begins, and we see this all throughout the Bible, begins with, well, what do you really want for your life? Do you want to experience life and all the goodness and all the joy, the peace that comes with it? Or are you going to just aimlessly wander around and find yourself cut off from the goodness, the grace, the peace, the joy that Christ brings? The Didache is a manual that trains us in the way of life. And my guess is you all would say that you want to be trained in the way of life. No one wanted to sign up for the way of death. And so the Didache is a guide that helps us to experience life now and we could say eternally. Now, the Didache comes with a warning. There is an urgency that we find within the Didache. Watch over your lives. Be intentional about your life. Watch over it. Don't be aimless. You must not, and I love this one here, you must not let your lamps go out, nor should you let your loins be ungirded. Rather, you should be ready because you don't know the hour at which our Lord is coming. Again, this parallels some of the parables of Jesus. You have the parables of the 10 lamps, the 10 bridesmaids, as there's a wedding approaching, and there's this urgency to the message of Jesus. Don't put off now what you can do today. I was years back, I had a life coach, and I don't remember who it was that he introduced me to. He introduced me to some other like Tony Robbins type guy. And the mantra that this person had was this small, simple phrase, do it now. And he said that every single morning he would wake up, he would sit on his bed immediately. As soon as the alarm went off, he would just like get right up, sit on the side of the bed, let his feet touch the floor. And before he would even stand up fully, he would repeat 50 times, Do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. I tried doing that, and Steph quickly was like, okay, please, can you stop? You are going to drive not only me crazy, but yourself crazy as well. But there's this urgency to the message in the Didache. Do it now. Don't put off living in a particular way for something that you can do in this moment. And here's how the Didache talks about this. Don't let yourself become angry. It may start in anger, but then it's going to end in murder, which seems quite drastic. Don't be angry because then it's going to go right to murder. But these are the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount as well. If you're angry in your heart, it's as if you're murdering. So the Didache kind of takes and ratchets it up a little bit here, this urgency factor. And don't be jealous. Don't be argumentative, nor someone with a hot temper, because these can also end in murder. Really uplifting words, right? Is that how you want to begin your week? Put that on Instagram. My child, don't be one who tells lies, for lying leads on to thieving. And don't be greedy, don't be vain, for these also lead on to thieving. It can start small, but then it just snowballs. It picks up steam from there. My child, don't be someone who grumbles, for it leads on to blasphemy. You start with a little bit of ingratitude, and then it just takes on more and more weight. And before you know it, you're someone who is ungrateful for all the goodness that you currently have. It starts with a little bit of ungratefulness, and then everything just snowballs down the mountain. Don't let yourself be angry. Don't harbor bitterness. Don't harbor unforgiveness. Do everything that you possibly can to keep your heart soft and open, to be honorable, to be upright, because whenever you give a little bit here, whenever you sacrifice a bit, well, you don't know where it's going to end up. You don't know how much weight that one little lie will carry. Small, seemingly insignificant decisions matter because they're taking you down a path. I love this picture right here. Have you ever been stuck in the mud with your car, with your truck? I have been stuck multiple times in mud and in snow once as well. What happens is, if your tires are stuck in mud, if they're stuck in snow, and you go into your vehicle and you hit the gas, you are going to be in more trouble because the ruts are just going to get deeper. That's how it works. There's one small decision, and then you compromise with something. You say, well, that was okay. Didn't lead to too much death. So you compromise again, and you get yourself a little deeper in the rut. And before you know it, your tires disappear. It's just this, it happens ever so subtly. You compromise in one area. You allow that anger just to harbor there in your heart, and your heart gets a little harder, but you say, I'm not as bad as that person. I'm not as bad as them. And you allow it just to sit there. You don't start dealing with it, but you sink deeper and deeper into the mud, into the snow, with every decision that takes you down a path that you don't want to go. And the only way to get out of one of these when you're stuck in a rut is, well, you need a whole bunch of people there. You need to get some plywood, some wood that you put there on the tire. You get people to push it. You need a community of people to help you get out of the rut. Jesus is talking, the Didache is talking about eternal life now. A quality of life that you can have right now in this moment. Watch over your lives. Every decision, every step you take in life is leading you down a particular path. You can experience more life, or you can experience a small death. Be mindful, be intentional, guard your life well. Jesus wants to offer a way of living right here, right now, a peace, a joy that you can have now, not just for the future. Jesus wants to offer a way of living right here, right now, that can continue forever. Sometimes we make the Christian faith about what happens after you die. If you're living in a particular way that's bringing peace, hope, love, and joy now, well, why wouldn't that way of living just continue on and on? Sometimes we follow Jesus because of what's going to happen later, and that's okay, but Jesus is saying you can have that type of life now in the midst of all the struggles and the hardships that you are going through. Jesus is saying you don't have to wait for peace. You don't have to wait for joy. Those can be yours now. And the decisions that you make determine the quality of life that you experience every single day. So a question for us. How do we make this very, very practical? How do we ensure that we walk the path of life? Here's the wisdom of the Didache. Gather together frequently. It's what we do on Sundays. It's what we do when we have community group, when we go to Harlem Grown, when we share a meal together. We have a couple of pictures from our meal together last week at Chopped. Immediately after service, we had a whole bunch. I was amazed. I was overjoyed by how many people stayed, walked to Chopped, and just shared a meal together. How do we ensure that we walk the path of life? Well, we gather together. We encourage one another. We realize you can't walk this journey alone because there's struggles and challenges and hardships. And on your own, I mean, I've experienced this in my life on my own, man. I'd just fall off a cliff. I need the support of others. I need the love of others, the joy that others bring to keep me walking that path. So gather together frequently and then seek those things that are good for your soul. I love that. Do that which is good for your soul. Here's your homework for this week. Do something good for your soul. Can we do that? Do something that fills you with hope, with love, and with joy. You gather together with others and then do the things that fill you with hope and love and joy. I found this observation quite compelling. Jesus is almost alone among religious leaders and not writing a book. All his work was focused on establishing a community of disciples. Jesus didn't go off on his own, get a little manuscript and start writing about his teachings, but rather he spent his time developing people. He spent his time with others. Oh, of course, others put his practices and teachings into words in a book that we have today, but Jesus invested in the lives of those around him. He showed his disciples a way of living so that they could then take that way of living on to others. It's about community. And for us at Awaken, I mean, it's the foundation of who we are. From the very beginning, Awaken has been about community because we realize we need the support of others. It's why we make sure that we have so many different community events and ways for us to connect with others, to talk, so that when you're going through something, you have a whole Rolodex of phone numbers of people that you can call and reach out to. Hey, can I have some prayer? Which actually, that reminds me, I would have forgotten about it. So Nicole and Trish, who some of you know, not all of you know, but Nicole hasn't been here a while, been dealing with some health issues. She said it's okay to share this. She's having surgery tomorrow, and she did ask for prayer. It's going to be pretty long recovery, and she's been dealing with this issue for a while. Well, even though Nicole hasn't been with us in person, she still feels connected to this group, and she's asking for our prayer. We'll pray for her as we close the service here in a minute. But it's why we get together once a month to pray for each other. It's why we ask, hey, are there any prayer requests, any ways that we can support you? Because this is a place of belonging. It's one thing to believe a certain way, but it's another thing to allow those beliefs to transform you and for you to put them into practice. And in order to do so, you need a group of people to help show you the way. Last week, I had someone send me an email, and they said, hey, is it too late to sign up for membership for Awaken for the year? And I said, no, of course not. The way in which we do membership at Awaken is quite different than maybe how you've experienced it at other churches. And I got this idea from another pastor from another church because I thought it was absolutely brilliant. At the end of the year, we wipe our membership slate clean. And then as we enter into a new year, we ask, hey, who wants to sign up to commit to this community, to belong to this group? We see it as an annual membership that you have to revisit every single year because we want it to be an intentional decision. Sometimes you subscribe for something and you're wondering, why am I still getting these emails? Or why am I still paying these monthly fees? And you have to do an audit to go through all the emails, to go through all the subscription fees. Well, we want to be intentional at Awaken about making sure that this is the community that you want to commit to for the year, to be involved with, to support, to volunteer, to do life with this group. And so I told this person, I said, well, of course, you can sign a membership at Awaken. It's open all the time. And of course, the offer is open to anyone. But what happens when you sign your name, it takes that commitment deeper. And you're saying, this is my group. And these are the people that I am learning to walk the way of Jesus with. And so we'll always do membership that way at Awaken. I love that intentional aspect way of starting the year. And throughout the year, it's open as well. It's never too late. So if anyone is interested in membership, you can come see me. It's a form. And you sign your name and say, yeah, this is my group. But that's what Awaken is all about. It's about us joining together, learning to walk the way of life. It's too easy to walk the way of death. And on your own, it's easy to walk down that path. So we come together, we gather frequently so that we can truly experience the life that Jesus offers. Not a life that's for the future, but a life that's available now, and that changes us, and that the world can be changed through us, as Jesus taught his disciples to go into the world and bring the love, the grace, the healing of Jesus to all corners of the earth.